I'm Peter Spina, and I'm the Business Support Officer at NADF. And so today we're going to speak a bit about um, the ABFP Calculator and as well as the ABFP grant as well. So today we'll just go over a couple of the funding options, what the ABFP grant is, as well as the calculator. And at the end, we'll have time for questions. And we're also going to be doing a draw for those that stay for attendance through the whole presentation. And you'll be eligible to win a $75 e-gift card. So a few of the funding options that we have at NADF are the business loan, and that goes up to $500,000, and that's for anyone who is looking to start a full-time business. We have the microloan, which runs between $2,500 and $7,500, and that's great for anyone who's looking to make a small purchase for their business while also increasing their credit score. Then we have the women in business loans. So there are two options here. There is one for up to $20,000, and then there is one for up to $50,000. And what's great about both of these ones are they allow the applicant to be running a part-time or side hustle business, so it doesn't have to be full-time. And then we have the Aboriginal Business Financing Program, or ABFP, and that is the grant program, and it can be applied to our business loan. So what is ABFP? So ABFP is the Aboriginal Business Financing Program. It is a non-repayable grant. It covers three categories: business support, capital costs, and marketing costs. It has a max range of $99,999 for individuals and up to $249,999 for community-based businesses. It is a formula-based grant. So basically what that means is there is a portion that is paid with the grant, and then there's also a portion paid through or with the applicant. And in cases of capital costs, there is a loan component as well, but we will discuss that a little further. And then it is also a needs-based financing program. So ABFP is a non-repayable grant. So ABFP is provided in the form of a forgivable contribution. Essentially, that's just fancy government speak for a grant. And then the forgivable contribution does not have to be repaid, provided the applicant follows the terms and conditions of the financing agreement. So basically, when you get approved for a grant, you get a letter, and with that letter, there outlines the details of the grant. So essentially, there's a average monitoring period of about 2 to 5 years, and some of the conditions that are included in that letter are that we need to see active business insurance, financial statements, and you aren't able to sell the assets in that time period. The letter also provides you with a list of what you can purchase that would be covered with those ABFP funds. So the three sections that are covered with ABFP are business support. So that's ultimately anything that you could use to support the business. You might need to speak with a lawyer for legal advice. You might want to have them help you do the documents if you're looking at incorporating your business. If you are looking at getting bookkeeping training because you want to learn how to do the books yourself, or if maybe you're speaking with an architect because you need to have some sort of drawings done up, these would be things that are covered under business support. And with that, up to 75% of those costs are eligible under ABFP. With capital and operating costs, those would be things like capital would be things that you can touch and help generate income for the business, whereas operating costs would be things that help you operate the business. So insurance, utilities, hookups. With this, if you're between the ages of 18 and 39, the grant is eligible to be up to 40% of those capital costs or operating costs. And then if you're 40 or older, it helps cover 35% of those costs. And some capital costs could be maybe you're looking at starting a snow removal business. So you need to purchase a couple snow plows, maybe a couple bobcats, anything like that. If you're looking at maybe the business has been doing really well and you're looking at expanding and you need to purchase a couple more, then we could look at putting those as capital costs. And then for marketing, that would be things like if you were looking at doing a website, maybe you need to have business cards done. You want to be the top search on the first Google page, so you want to pay for SEO work. Maybe you need to have uniforms for the business. These would be the marketing costs, and we help cover up to 60% of those costs. So like I had previously mentioned, the max total for individuals is $99,999. And that's basically like the total amount you're able to apply for. And if you wanted to apply for business support, capital costs, and marketing costs, you're able to. But if you wanted to apply for just capital costs and use that full 99,000, you're more than welcome to. So who's eligible to apply for ABFP? So essentially, it's categorized as individuals or community-owned operations. Essentially, when we say individuals, that could be maybe you're starting the business by yourself, or maybe it's you and two friends, or maybe you're looking at incorporating the business. Those all fall under individual. And so as long as the business is full-time and minimum 51% Indigenous owned, you're able to apply for the grant of $99,999. And then with community-owned operations, so a lot of the times First Nation communities have an economic development office, and they're the ones who deal with like the First Nation operations. And so they are able to apply for $249,999. And if they are looking for a higher amount in grant funding, we would just send them to Indigenous Services Canada because they have access to a higher amount of grant funding. The only issue there is that they only meet twice a year, so your application might sit for a long time until you can find out if you've been approved or not. So with, as the ABFP is a formula, this is kind of just a breakdown of how it would look. So with business support costs, like I had mentioned, it is 75% grant. So that's what would be covered by the program. And then the remaining 25 is what you, the applicant, would put in. So that's 100% of those costs. With capital and operation costs, we do need to see an equity portion. So if you are between the ages of 18 and 39, we do need to see 10% cash in a bank account showing that this is the amount you're going to be putting into the project. Then we could look at putting 40% of that as a grant, and then the remaining 50% would be a loan. When dealing with capital costs, there does need to be a loan component attached to it. And then if you are 40 or older, the equity portion just becomes 15%, with the grant of 35, and then the loan being 50% as well. With marketing, it's a 60% grant, and the applicant just needs to put in 40%. So earlier I'd mentioned that ABFP is need-based. So essentially, financial need needs to be determined by reviewing net worth statements, income tax returns, and financial statements. ABFP will only support what is necessary to start a business or expand that business. So if you're like a law firm and you're looking at starting up, we can help purchase the computers, the equipment, anything else you would need. We just wouldn't finance the artwork that you would hang on the wall, or anything that would be non-necessary to start the business. The ability of the applicant to obtain financing for the project is also considered. So if you're not able to be approved for a loan, you wouldn't be able to access the ABFP for those those capital costs. So once again, it needs to be 10% equity, 40% would be the grant, 15% would need to be the loan. And then the applicant has shown that ABFP would be necessary to ensure that the project proceeds with desired scope and timing in the desired location. So essentially what that all boils down to is, if you're coming to us and you're looking at starting a business and it would cost you $100,000 to start, as we're looking through everything and it turns out that you have, like, say, $3 million sitting around in a bank account somewhere, you wouldn't be able to be approved for ABFP because you have the means yourself to pay for the whole project, and that grant funding could be provided to someone who doesn't have the funds available to them. So eligible costs, like I had mentioned before, capital costs, so anything you can touch or help generates revenue. Marketing costs, which would be like decals, web design, costs related to infrastructure development. So maybe you need to build a building, maybe you have something smaller, like a garage or something you need. Assets and shares. So this would be if you're looking at acquiring shares into a business. Costs associated with innovation and growth. So that would be your acquisition or your expansion costs. Costs with speaking with consultants and other qualified professionals. So this would again be like your lawyers. Maybe you just need to speak with an architect. Costs associated with providing financial and business services. So again, anyone who's able to help you do business, like that would help you do support the business, those would be covered as well. And then costs associated with obtaining appropriate training or mentoring. So if you wanted to learn to do the books yourself, we could look at having an accountant or bookkeeper train you in doing the books through QuickBooks or however you were looking at doing the books. And if you weren't sure if anything would be qualified under ABFP, you are always able to give me a call or send me an email, and I could let you know if that would be qualified or not. So that's what is eligible. What's not eligible would be wages, direct alcohol production, marketing, distribution, or sales, tobacco production, marketing, distribution, or sales, games of chance, casinos, bingo halls, small-scale gambling operations, any sexual exploitive materials, entertainment, services, products, marketing, distribution, including any web-based activities, pawn shops, check cashers, finance companies, and any other small, short-term, high-interest rate loans that can go by a variety of names, and passive investment, so things like real estate, or any activity where the applicant isn't fully involved. So these are things that wouldn't be eligible for ABFP. And again, if you were curious if it would or wouldn't qualify, you can always send me a call or send me an email and I can help determine if it would be or wouldn't be. So the other part of this presentation is for the ABFP calculator. So a lot of times it can be a lot of numbers thrown at you to figure out, you know, how much the grant would be towards certain pricing. So what I did to help myself out was I came up with an Excel spreadsheet that does all the math to help me figure out what's covered under ABFP and what's not. And then, so we figured to supply it with applicants as well to help them out. So we're going to go through a quick example of kind of costs associated with starting a business and determine how much would be covered for support for each section. So basically with the ABFP example, I'm looking at starting a small bakery. So I've gotten quotes for a commercial fridge, or yeah, commercial oven, a fridge, the shelving, a register, a computer. I'm gonna need some office equipment. So, you know, I'll need a chair, some folders, some paper. I've got quotes for the lease and the insurance. So we're gonna apply for funding for 3 months. I've spoken with a local marketing firm and they're going to help me do business cards, get the signage up. They're going to help me develop a little bit of website, do the audio for radio ads. And then I'm also looking at having a bookkeeper show me how to do the training for myself to learn how to do the books. So we're basically going to take these numbers and figure out what's covered for funding. So let's make sure everything's good. So this is essentially the Excel spreadsheet. It gives there's a few sections that you need to fill out. So your name, so I would just put, my own name. My age, so it's 2025, so I'm 33 right now. The business is 100% Indigenous owned. I am not a community owned business. So if I were, I would just select yes, but I am not. I'm not applying for a women in loan business or women in business loan. I am looking at having the taxes applied to the loan. And since the business is not on reserve and is going to be in Thunder Bay, the business isn't going to be tax exempt at all. So I just select no. If it was going to be on reserve, you can select yes. And I'm also looking for funding from NADF to cover some of the capital costs. For project amount, that's going to be the amount that the total project's going to cost. And so we just need to have a general idea of how much you're applying for. And then, so that's what the project amount is. You don't have to fill anything out here. It'll do it itself. So with the business support costs, I was looking at doing book training. So I would hit the categories button and there is a drop down of fields that are in the application. So I'm doing bookkeeping training. So I would just select bookkeeping. Just a quick note that for myself, that this is the bookkeeping class. And that was going to be $3,000 for the 3 months. Then the marketing costs, since it's a mix of things, I'll just put it as other. So this would be covering the business cards, the website, and the ads. So that came out to $5,000. And as you can see, as if I were to put more in here, the total number of the business support increases, which then increases the amount of the project amount. And you can have as many as you need. There's no limit to how much you can try to apply for funding for, as long as it, but once it maxes out at the 99,000, then that's how much the grant's able to help you out with. Then with the capital costs, I needed to get equipment. So I was looking at buying equipment. So commercial oven, then fridge, that was $5,000. The office equipment, was $1,500. Shelving, was $4,000 or was $10,000. And the lease and insurance came out to $4,000. So essentially, the project is going to cost me about $28,500. So that's going to be how much I will be applying for funding for. So if we look over here in this other, in the ABFP tab, the business, the bookkeeping cost was $3,000. Oh, sorry. And these are all, I should have mentioned, sorry. These are all the costs before tax. So it was $3,000. I included what the tax would be in here, but if we were to go the 3,000, so came out to $339,000. So I would be putting, the grant would cover $2,250, and I just have to pay it the remaining 25%, which is the $1,140. So the grant is able to cover 75% of that cost. Then with the all the equipment, the utilities that we be purchasing, with the tax included, came into about $23,165. So I just have to put in the 10%, which is $1,715. The loan would be $11,275, and the grant would be able to cover $7,175. And with the marketing costs, with the tax, came out to $5,650, and I just have to put in $2,650, and then the remaining $3,000 is covered by the grant. So that's pretty much how the calculator works, just going into it a little bit of more detail. When you are applying for funding, the application has a section for the grants, and it does have a breakdown that looks um, identical to this. So it has the professional fees and consulting, bookkeeping, training, monitoring, legal fees, and other. So what I did was kind of have a section in here called categories, and there's a drop down for which one that cost would apply to. If you aren't sure what it is, you can leave it, or you can select other, or you can give me a call. We can kind of figure out which one it would best go under. Same with marketing. There's a section for the signage, web development, and other. And with the capital costs, building equipment, rent, acquisition cost, or sorry, renovations, acquisition, other capital costs, then the operating costs such as inventory, insurance, rent, hookups, or other operating costs are all there as options. If you're not sure what it is, again, give me a call, or you can just leave it as other. At the end of the day, it's not going to be the worst thing if you just leave it as other. And these would be the costs that you could put into the application, so we have a general idea of what the costs are going to be. This calculator is just for information purposes. It may not be the finalized numbers. It's just to give you a better idea of what the funding will be able to be distributed towards. And it is still currently being worked to be rolled out to anyone who is applying for funding. And if anyone in this call is interested, they can get a copy of the Excel sheet right now, and we can and help me try to like do a real case scenario to make sure that the math everywhere is working. So if that's something you would be interested in, you can feel free to give me an email later on or after this presentation, and I can help you. I can send you a copy. So that's pretty much the presentation as a whole. If you have any questions, we'll take them now. But before we do that, let's spin the wheel here. See who is the lucky winner today. Angela, congratulations. You're the winner of a $75 e-card. We'll be in contact with you in a bit to get your information so we can send you the card. So I'll just go to the question section here. Can some costs be used to hire staff? So I think I covered it later on. I didn't see this question when it appeared. ABFP isn't able to cover wages. That's just something that the business would have to be expected to pay. So it's not one of the costs covered by the program. And then can a business apply for another loan or grant through ABFP if they are already, or if they already have one? So you aren't able to apply for ABFP until that first one is run through. And then I believe there's a 2-month or a 2-year waiting period for you to be able to apply for additional ABFP funds. Timeline for approval or response. So if we are able to get all the information that we need from the applicant, so what we need is the application, quotes for everything that you're looking at funding for, copy of a status card or a second piece of government ID, business plan, cash flow template. Once we get all that stuff, I'm able to submit it to the account manager, and they kind of do a screening. A lot of the times, it could be anywhere as quick as a week or as long as a couple weeks. They just need time to check the account and run it for screening. I know we do a screening every week, so it usually takes anywhere from a week or two. But if you need the funding, if there's like an ASAP kind of situation, we could try to get the application looked at as soon as possible. Thank you so much for attending. And if you would like to have a copy of the Excel sheet to do a quick example with yourself, feel free to send me an email at pspina@NADF or info@NADF. We are looking at launching it as a finalized version on about March 31st. But until then, it's still just running a couple tests. Thank you all so much for attending, and I hope I was able to answer your questions.